Hi, this is Dana. Hi, this is Dana, and in this video, I will talk about a few of the topics which I briefly presented before from a higher perspective. I would look at bondage creation beginning with childhood age. So we'll have an overview of the situation because this is when it started. It started in young childhood. So I will try to divide to be very clear. So what we deal with in 3D, there are two different camps. You have on one hand God's lineage, which are the divine beings, and these are beings, as I said in previous video, of a certain very high degree of purity, which means in their light you can reach divine, you can reach God. Okay, so they have very pure light. And on the other hand, you have the karmics, which essentially um, are individuals um resulted from crossbreeds with other races from divine realm. So these are individuals who were created as humans by God from the divine realm, right, with a soul from the same lineage, but throughout different lifetimes, they crossed breed with other races with which God's lineage is at war. Okay, these are forces from outer cosmos with which there is a war ongoing for supremacy on Earth, right? So these are the karmics. For them, and here you have a very wide variety of situations, but for them, it's much more difficult. I will not say they are not divine beings. They are the result of crossbreeding between what God created as divine being and other forces. Hence, their light is not as pure as of the divine being, right? Because it has interference with other races. So in their light, you will, in their energy, you will encounter sometimes a combination between divine light and darkness from other forces from outer cosmos. And these are different type of races. And everybody makes references to Satan and to Lucifer and so on, but there are also other races which come from darkness. And again, in the energy of these individuals, you will find different entities having power over them. Now, for them, it's difficult because they have a struggle, and it's their own responsibility, with help from God, to fight for themselves, to gain back their souls and their souls from the divine realm, from God, and to purify their light. This is done through redemption. This is done through purification of energy, of light, by soul embodiment from God, and by karma, by paying back the negative karma they built while they acted uh, under the influence of the dark forces which claim them, which are present in their energy field. And to the extent to which they give them power, those forces have power over them, and they come in 3D and do a lot of harm against God, against God's lineage, against divine beings, and so on. So they can go through this process of redemption and purgatory for purification and soul embodiment, so they can reach back into to their own original blueprint. Because I said in the beginning, in many videos before, God created human beings equally the same. The issue is what you did in different lifetimes, different incarnations, and those who made mistakes um, uh, were led to a situation where basically they crossbreeds with other forces, and they continue to do more and more and more harm, and to accumulate more and more negative karma, and hence we have the karmics. Okay, now this is extremely important, and I want this information to keep it on the back of your mind while I present the following situation. because it's very important to understand uh, that you essentially cannot escape this. Again, we are at war between different races, and if you want to be back with in the divine realm with God, you have to go through this. There is no other option. Okay. Um, if you encounter a karmic, if you want to go to the divine realm in light with God, then you have to cut off all the karmics who refuse to do the same journey as you. You have to cut them off simply because you cannot carry them with you. This is a process between that individual and God. You cannot substitute yourself to God. You cannot. You can sacrifice yourself if you make that choice. To me, it's foolish choice. But if you want to make that choice to sacrifice yourself in order to help an individual to ascend to light, that means you just essentially go back and you live with that individual, his karma. And I will say this from the experience of the spiritual work that I have done. They will not have a second thought in pulling you down, making you pay for their karma, and they would just sacrifice you and cut the ties with you, or just feed on you. So that's your choice. But anyhow, this is the information important. Why? Because I want to pick up again against this background the topic of uh, abuse, child abuse. And I will say the following that I presented briefly in a different video from a different perspective. Now, children from God's lineage, as they incarnate, they of course come with the soul from God, from the divine realm, and they are abducted here, especially those that come from God's lineage with the soul. They are abducted and adopted into families made of crossbreeds, because these races from outer cosmos, they need to feed on divine light. They don't have light. They are from darkness. So they seek to get some individual, woman or man, from divine lineage to enslave him or her and feed on her. Okay. Now, what I'm presenting is the situation related to children. So the children from God's lineage are abducted and adopted into families of crossbreed, into families which are under control of this matrix, this mafia system, which created the 3D, and they have the power over 3D, and they want to preserve the status quo. They enroll these children in some satanic cults organizations where satanic offerings and sacrifice rituals are done on them in order to, and numerous experiments are done on them in order to break their spirit, to break their soul, to better control them through trauma bond creation and through enslavement. This you can find a description of all these tortures in all the writings about Nazi and communist political prisons, the experiments done on them, the experiments done on Templars, essentially for brain washing and brain programming and all of that. So they do all of this to the children at a very early age. What I've seen is it cannot be described. I think I'm not sure that it can be described on YouTube. What I've seen in these camps, the tortures that they have, these children are subjected to, are absolutely terrifying. And the purpose is to steal their gifts, their rights, their ranking in God's lineage, in order to take power. Again, it's a confrontation between races. So those are races from the dark doing this against God's lineage, and children coming from God's lineage. They do this sometimes through parental accord. This is why they are adopted into families which are either from intel institutions, governmental institutions, politicians, political parties, leaders, masonry, corporations, and everybody that is in this matrix system. Sometimes these parents, these adoptive parents, they give parental accord, parental rights to these organizations over their children. And many of them, many of these children are used for crossbreeding in order to be enslaved and further used in feeding on them and so on. Later on, these children, many of them that actually go through this mind programming, essentially are growing up to become members into these satanic cults, satanic organizations, secret societies. And as teenagers, they become part of networks like Epstein networks, which essentially is a network which feeds outer cosmos forces. These are forces which feed on sexual energy. You have to understand, people treat this like, this is some anomaly, some individual who was horribly obsessed with sex. No, no, no. These are forces from outer cosmos which feed on sexual energy. This is the purpose of the sexual orgies and all these sexual culture which has been promoted since the 50s, 60s onwards, in which gender is being denaturated and sexual relations have been transformed entirely and became the core of defining societies and relationships between people. Now, all of this is important to understand, of course, first for those that have children, to check and do DNA tests to make sure that you have your own child and it was not abducted upon birth without you knowing. And second is important because we are at a time in ascension when everybody is talking about twin flames, divine masculine, divine feminine, and couples. You have to understand all of this when you make your choices, because what happens if you choose to be in a couple with an individual from a crossbreed or from entirely completely other race, what happens is that individual gets right over you as a woman, and he will sign contracts on you to these satanic cults, satanic organizations, without you knowing. They will sign contracts on you to your over your children, contracts on your children to these organizations. So when you make your choice, you need to make sure that you know who you choose, and especially as I kept pointing out, you shouldn't give any kind of undeserved forgiveness to anyone if they already proved that they went the wrong way, and you shouldn't accept to any karma to be transferred to you through undeserved forgiveness. You should ask God for justice, judgment, and punishment, because you cannot imagine how hard it is to break these contracts once somebody, either adoptive parents or spouse, signed over you. I speak from experience. I was married to one of these individuals from crossbreed who signed contracts over me, and I learned by asking God for justice, judgment, and punishment. And this is how I started investigating this situation, and this is how I got to this information, which I'm putting out there in the hope that each individual will do their own investigation in prayer to God to be illuminated and shown to them their particular situation, but also in the hope, which God is pointing out to me, that within these institutions which hold power in justice system and investigation system, somebody is still pure enough in intentions that they will go further with their investigation, and they will make justice in 3D system, and they will discover all these things which I'm pointing out at this point in time. This is what God says, at least, so I'm hoping this is correct. So again, you have to be very sure of the choices you make. And you have to understand, again, we are here from God's lineage. We came here in order to carry on this fight. I'm sorry, this is my dog on the background. If you hear something eating, that's my dog. He somehow finds this pleasure to eat only when I'm registering video. So, so this is very important. So you will check who you choose to make sure that you don't subject yourself to situations in which you end up to be essentially human trafficking. This is human trafficking done in a very hidden bondage kind of way. But this is, first of all, it's human trafficking. Second of all, it's done in order to trade between countries, in between mafia organizations, to trade rights over these individuals. So it's about the strategic balance negotiated, which I described in the videos in which I talked about Yalta agreements and so on. This is very important to understand, because this is a time of choices to be made, and this is a time when most karmics are going through God's judgment and punishment, and they are pointing the finger at us, we fought for our lives and for our light to stay with God, and now they blame us for the punishment God bestows upon them. And this is not fair. This is their job to do, to purify themselves, and we are not in debt in any way, kind of form, to them, to give them anything from our light in order to draw us down with them, drag us down. They should do their work with God, and they should be grateful that God is giving them chances for redemption. And I'm here to say that these chances for redemption are limited. If they don't take these opportunities, they must know that they will get more punishment, and it will be even harder for them to find their way back to light. Again, I'm emphasizing my advice, which I'm applying in my life. Don't accept anyone back. Don't give undeserved forgiveness. Don't just claim justice, judgment, and punishment, and move on your path to God. You are transmuting darkness in the world by doing so. We are here. We came here to carry out this war and to go back to the divine realm. This is a situation of coming into 3D, doing our spiritual purpose, going back to the divine realm, focusing on a 3D perspective of making a family, creating children, raising them, and enjoying life. This is a mistake. This is an illusion which they create in order to divert us from our purpose. Now, one thing that I'm guided to say in addition to this, and God insisted on me saying this, is that to give an example, which should be familiar to everyone and would help everyone to understand, and that is Michael Jackson, who has been born into this kind of secret society cult, satanic cult, and he was sold by his father and mother to this satanic cult, which used him to infuse his music with specific type of darkness attacks. I explained also in the video I made about Prince how that works. The same was done by Michael Jackson, but they're totally different energies if you look, and totally different groups that work through the two. If you look at Prince, you will see sorcery done focused on sexuality in the initial years of his career. If you look at Michael Jackson, you have an Illuminati attack, a totally different type of energy attack. And this is why, in Michael Jackson's case, children are being used. Now, God guided me to show that Michael Jackson offered his help in order to heal and offer support to children who were going through the same experience as him within the same type of satanic organization where he was sold into enslavement. So he was basically used as a slave. He was not the one using the children, but he was the one trying to give them some financial support and some emotional support, material support, and emotional support, in order to help them get through it and to build a life for themselves. But God has shown me that it was not him who was enslaving the children, but it was the parents of those children who brought the children into the satanic cult, exactly like happened to Michael Jackson. And it was their parents who are actually selling out the children and contracts on their own children, because those were abducted children and those were adoptive parents. And the children were adopted into those families specifically with this purpose. So they will give rights to the satanic cult over them. And the smearing campaign on Michael Jackson's name was precisely because he was trying to save those children from those organizations, and he was trying to save himself at the same time. Um, he was trying to find a way to get out of their control, and obviously his death was an execution, just like Prince was executed and murdered, and it was covered up under some sort of stupid explanation. In Michael Jackson's case, it was a doctor who gave him the medication which killed him. And that basically shows. But at the same time, there was not true justice made to their cases. So by this video, I'm asking actually those within authority institutions to actually make justice for them, because this is what God has guided me. So God is asking those from God's lineage present in 3D, which have power over this, to investigate the two cases and make justice. There are other cases as well in the United States which haven't been investigated, just like Michael Jackson and Prince. There's also JFK and RFK. To this day, the American government doesn't release the papers from JFK's death, which I think is pathetic. And they claim to be the defender of democracy on earth. This is funny. But they're all these cases are going back to the same topic essentially, and this is the mafia, the matrix, the secret societies, the satanic societies, which create these systems. And again, I emphasize this is a system which is feeding forces out of from outer cosmos with specific type of energies, depending on which force they worship. And this is done in order to help those outer cosmos forces to gain advantage and win in a war against God's lineage. So you have to understand, I'm putting all of this together so you will understand the depth of your choices. So we're not talking only about, you must understand one day we will be back in divine realm, and you will have to answer to God of the choices you made. It's not only about your life or your child's life. You are here part of this war. This is why you came to 3D, right? In order to carry on your spiritual purpose. The partner you're choosing to have a couple with, again, you have a spiritual purpose together. This is the spiritual purpose. This fight is the spiritual purpose. You come together to transmute darkness and to break bondage in order to be able to go back to the divine realm. You have the same responsibility with the children you create, because they have special gifts, just like you have special gifts. And I emphasize again, so this is why you come together. So when you look at this from this perspective, then you should make a list of preconditions for choosing a special individual to be your partner. And you shouldn't be hesitating too much in rejecting many of them, because again, I emphasize those who actually are karmics, they have their own path, which is different from us, and it's not possible for you, if you already advanced, it's not possible for you to preserve your status, your ranking, your light, and your connection to God, and choose a karmic partner as well. You cannot. The only thing you will do, you will give him a chance to transfer the karma to you, which is very wrong. Keep this in mind. God is coming for you at the end of every karmic cycle to make justice for you. And it's like you slap God's hand when he's giving you a new beginning and you say, no, I want to go back to darkness. This is how it looks when you choose to let again a karmic to come back into your life. You must understand how much God has been protecting each and every individual and trying to create opportunities for you to come into the light. You only see your work, which is hard, and I know it. You only see your work to get into light and stay into light. But you cannot imagine how much work God is doing with each individual to create opportunities for them to come to light. And when you get there, and God is ready to give you a new beginning so you can create more light on earth, which is indirectly helping those karmics as well. It's helping everyone. Yeah. You, instead of saying, thank you, Father God, for helping me get here, and I'm looking forward to create light with you, you slap God's hand and you go back to karmics and try to understand why you're doing this. And you will see that each and every time you do this, it's generated by a mind programming, some sort of bondage created on you which you didn't break, some sort of lesson which you didn't fully understand, some sort of power which you gave away. I'm going to stop here. This was the purpose of this video. And I hope that it basically put into a different perspective everything, because we are still at the time of God's judgment and punishment. You still have time to make the right choice and to make sure that you really distance yourself from those who are under God's judgment and punishment, not because you're mean, but because you have a different path. Period. You just have a different path. And it's not your job to rescue anyone. It's not your job. And believe me, you can't. You just can't. I'm going to stop here. And as always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I will be happy to answer them. The videos are always short because it takes a long time to upload them, but I would be happy to answer. I will publish my book with my prophetic writings from 40 years of spiritual writing, and I will add a link to that where you can order my book in the description box below, where you can also find my PayPal account in case you feel inclined to donate. And I want to take this opportunity to thank those who donated to support my work and to support me and my channel. Thank you.